Welcome to the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast, the podcast all about the delicate balance between people and business, and quite literally reconnecting the two. My name is Tracy Rubin, and I've spent nearly my entire professional career in HR. Join me as I share stories, opinions, and words of advice with you each week. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here for another week. I know last week, I think I mentioned that I would have a guest interview for you or a guest episode for you this week. But you know what? I decided to switch it up because I've been getting so many questions about this topic. So first of all, we might not hit 30 minutes today. We're going to see how it goes. You know, it's Passover week, so I'm keeping it light. And actually, by the time this episode comes out, a ton of holidays have come and gone. So we're in the middle of Passover. Easter is come and gone. Happy Easter to all of you. Ramadan is underway. So whatever holiday you celebrate, I hope that it's been meaningful and peaceful and happy and, time well spent with the people that you love. So with that, I am going to jump right into our topic for today. Actually, let me back up. I'm not going to jump right into the topic for today. I want to first just, thank all of you who have been leaving 5-star reviews on this podcast. It means a lot, and I actually really check it. When reading, the reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts, seeing the 5 stars on Spotify, it goes a long way for me. I know it's not necessarily the best habit to check and see what people say about you, but it's really, at least because it's positive, it's really nice to see and read. And so I'm just glad that I'm having a positive impact on your lives and hopefully continue to have a positive impact on your lives. And for those of you who reach out by DM, by email, by LinkedIn message and just, say that you are listening, it means so much. So thank you. Now we will officially jump into the episode. I have received so many questions about people who are trying to decide whether or not they should quit their jobs. Mic drop. Now, there is a reason why I released last week's episode about decision making and the methodology there. And part of the reason is because I knew at some point I was going to be talking about this topic. Naturally, I shared my story about leaving a job within 90 days, less than 90 days. I shared that with you earlier this year, actually a couple months ago at this point. But I didn't necessarily go into all of the questions and all of the things that even you're probably asking yourself if you are in a similar situation. I've touched on it briefly in past episodes, but I've gotten so many questions about this. And I will say that there is a lot of press out there. The media is talking about this a lot, that the Great Resignation led to this great moment of reflection. Let's say the Great Reflection now. I don't know if anyone's coined that term, but that's kind of what's going on. It's kind of what happened with me. People were leaving their jobs. They were looking for something better. Maybe it paid more. Maybe it offered more. Maybe it was more flexible or something like that. And now 3 months later, people are saying to themselves, I'm not sure that this is the right environment for me. And this is it's been very common. Obviously, it happened with me, but it's continuing to happen with a lot of other people. Now, there are some reasons for this. I think one, employers, and I've talked about this before, employers are in a position to sell the dream and to gain as much top talent as possible. And so there might be opportunities within that organization, but they're selling you the dream. And I also think when there are open positions, it means that there are people who are potentially doing a whole lot more than they normally are expected to do. And so maybe even the culture is taking a hit. So now, employers are just so desperate to fill their roles that, again, they're selling the dream, and it might not be the dream. So, and actually I'll get to this a little bit, but there have been a lot of people saying, I took my dream job, or so what I thought was my dream job, and it's not. So, again, selling the dream, if it's a dream, is a great strategy. Selling the dream, if it's not a dream, is a losing strategy. So that's the one reason why I think there's this great reflection following the Great Resignation. The second thing is that I think people might have been a little bit desperate to have some change. And I mean, I can relate to that. I get it. Change of scenery is good. Sometimes you've been somewhere a long time and you want to see what else is out there. In this case, I think sometimes red flags are missed, and it happens. Again, it happened with me. If you haven't listened to that episode from however many months ago, you should definitely go back and listen, because I share all of the things that I learned and the reasons why I left my job before the job that I'm in now. So, those are two major factors, I think, that are leading to this great reflection. People are in roles that they didn't exactly expect to, or maybe turned out differently than they anticipated. So let's get to the questions. One question that I received is, should I actually leave my job? There are things I'm really not happy with, and there are things that I don't appreciate about my leadership that were, made out to be totally different in the interview process. But at the same time, I like my title, I like my pay, I like the industry. Do I wait it out? Do I continue to give feedback and hope for the best? And I said to this person that I think you really have to weigh the pros and cons. It always comes down to this, right? If things are not that bad, meaning you're not being harassed, intimidated, bullied, if you're not in a toxic work environment, if you're not, forced to deal with things that are unethical, like things like that, right? I'm potentially not even touching on all of the issues, right? But those things are a little bit less negotiable, right? Like you don't want to work in an environment where you are not accepted for who you are, where it's toxic, or, you're facing harassment. That's 1, illegal, 2, uncool, and 3, really not inspiring. So, those are things that absolutely you should leave without a doubt. But if things are not necessarily that bad, and maybe it's more so issues with leadership competencies, leadership skill set, leadership actually, doing their jobs, maybe it's your role, maybe it's the culture of the organization is not exactly what you want it to be, but those are things that really can be improved over time, then maybe it's something that you kind of stick with, depending on, of course, what you see in the long run. Because in the short run, it's not ideal, but that doesn't mean that it's not ideal in the long run. We can't always make decisions based on where we sit and how we feel today. So that was my feedback. And obviously, there was a little bit more in that, but what I tried to get at is that you have to really evaluate if your environment and experience is tolerable or tolerable enough. And is it really that bad, or is it just something that kind of annoys you, frustrates you, but ultimately is something that you can kind of deal with? So coming back to this point last week that I made, which is to really have a methodology around your decision making, this comes into play when you're deciding whether or not to stay in your job and to stay within your company. And you have to really take yourself out of the moment, take your emotions out of it, and think logically about the situation, and think logically short term and long term. Some things are really, really good in the short term, but are not really good in the long term. And conversely, things are really bad in the short term, but maybe have a positive outlook in the long term. So you have to really evaluate what the short term and long term gains are, the short term and long term opportunity costs. Like, what is it going to cost you to stay? What is it going to cost you to leave? And if you do, and sometimes that's financial, sometimes that's emotional, physical. Like, if your well-being is being affected and you have put in the work to improve your situation, meaning you've given feedback, you've, shared this feeling or this experience with someone else, someone who can help, maybe an HR person, for example, or your boss, if they're not involved in the challenges, or maybe you skip a level and you go up. If you've done those things, then you can reasonably say you've tried, and that maybe it's not the right environment for you, because nothing is really ever worth sacrificing your mental or physical well-being. But I say that to underpin that we do all have a responsibility to improve our own experiences. So if you are in an environment, again, that's not that bad, meaning no harassment, toxic environments, racism, things like that are not happening. And you can reasonably work through the challenges or the things that are frustrating you, you should be doing that. You should be giving feedback. You should be, approaching things with an optimistic viewpoint, but also critical and looking to change, what potentially currently exists. You should be reaching out to people who can help, key stakeholders, people who can influence the situation. And you have to remember that there's never, ever, ever a perfect place to work, a perfect job to work in. Everything is going to have its ups and downs. And I've talked about this a lot, that life is not without adversity. And so if you can take on the adversity within your role and see it as a growing opportunity, as a learning opportunity, then maybe it's something that is worth sticking out. If you've done all of those things and you don't see the value in sticking it out, then yes, it's probably time to look for something else. This episode is brought to you by Namely. With workforces continuing to evolve at rapid speeds, it's more important than ever to stay ahead and support the people behind your business. You need the right HR solution to do that, but making any type of switch can feel overwhelming, unless, of course, you make the switch to Namely. This is the all-in-one HR solution that your company needs, and they're backed by a team of hands-on specialists that will guide you every step of the way. Namely helps you and your team stay connected and informed on each aspect of HR, whether you have 50 or 1,000 employees, with onboarding, performance management, payroll, and intuitive benefits enrollment, all in one connected and modern platform. Plus, your team of implementation experts makes the transition to Namely painless with best practice consulting, system configuration, training, and more. And it doesn't stop at implementation. Get ongoing dedicated support and enhanced services from experts who know your business as you continue to evolve, so your entire team can become experts themselves with the tools and services that help them succeed. Companies are built on people. Don't let either fail. Get the support you need and learn more about making the switch to Namely today by going to namely.com. Don't wait, that's namely.com. Okay, so this second question, I really felt bad for this person. They reached out to me on LinkedIn. They listened to my episode about my own decision to leave my past role. And honestly, this is I guess I'm a little surprised at how many people were in a similar or are in a similar situation that I was in. And so every time I get a message like this, which again, I've gotten a ton, I've literally received dozens of emails, messages, and DMs about this since releasing and publishing my episode. And obviously every episode is evergreen. So people might listen in 2 years from now and still respond to this. So I didn't realize, I guess, how many people were in a similar situation, but I'm actually going to read this message because I think there are some interesting things here. And I'll read to you what I said and kind of evaluate and expand on this. So this person reached out and said, I wanted to confess that I've recently started listening to your podcast. Always confess that to me. Thank you for listening. And I resonated with the episode where you discuss quitting a job in 3 months. I resonated with that episode because I've recently started a job at my dream company, but I've been feeling unmotivated by my role and the lack of training by the staff. Since I started, I haven't been trained because 2 of my supervisors have quit, and there are so many changes that happened since I started. How do you deal with the loss of your dream job and dream company, and basically the realizing that you need to start and build a new dream? Would it be insane to look for another job while my company is dealing with these changes? I'd appreciate your opinion on this matter because I truly feel at a loss. And I actually took a couple of days to reflect on what I wanted to respond to, which I do. Sometimes I don't always respond right away. And I said, hey, thanks for your message. Thanks so much for listening to my podcast. I really appreciate it. It's so tough and I'm reading this verbatim because I kind of agree with myself on this. And I want everyone to receive this same message from me. It's so tough when you're at your dream company, but the role is a bit different than you expect it to be. Is it possible to reinvigorate your motivation or to ask for specific training opportunities since you didn't get the training you needed as a result of the turnover? I wouldn't mourn the loss just yet. Maybe first try and see if you can salvage what you have. If not, if you feel that all hope is lost, then I think the best way to get through this is to appreciate the learning opportunity and the journey. Dream companies exist because of the mission they're on, the benefits they offer, and the job that you ultimately are excited to do for them. And I would say you can create a dream company out of anything if you can find those specifics in your next role. I don't think it's insane to look for something new at all. It all depends on what will make you happy. If you're not happy now and there's no fixing what exists today, then finding something new makes total sense. I hope this helps. Please keep in touch. And, I think there was probably no better response that I honestly could have, because it is that. It's like, first of all, this is this person's dream company. And I've been there. I used to think like Google was it for me. And I was going to get to Google and that would be amazing. And for many, it's still a dream company. But I recently realized that you can make a dream company out of any company, because again, it comes down to the things that matter to you. The mission of the organization, the values of the organization, the people you're working with, the job you're doing. That's what makes a dream experience, right? Having all of those things work together harmoniously. Like, I am in my dream job, in my dream company right now, because I have all of those things. It might not be where I end up. It might not be where I stay for 25 years. Who knows? It could be, right? But those things all make for a dream job and dream company. And I have learned that sometimes when we put certain companies or people on pedestals, it kind of sets us up for a little bit of disappointment potentially, because everything is always a little bit different than it seems. It could be good, could be bad, could be better, could be worse. And so I really think that that's a key takeaway from my experience, and hopefully something that this person can also take with them, in that you can really establish that dream environment wherever you are, or find that dream company, that dream job, wherever you may go. And if you get that, hold on to it. And when it's time to make a change, emulate that, right? Like, try to recreate that. And then you heard that I also asked, well, like, are there things that can be changed? Because this person didn't say that they're absolutely miserable where they are or what they're doing, but rather that there are a lot of things that they didn't anticipate, because there's been a lot of change and there's been turnover. That turnover, especially when it's at the manager level, can be extremely challenging for the employees beneath that role, because you're at a loss with a lack of guidance, a lack of training, as we heard from this person's email or message. And then on top of that, you're also at a loss because you might feel a little bit left in the dark, because now you don't have the leadership that you need. So, those things are temporary, right? Which is why I started this episode talking about the short term versus the long term. And why I said to this person, like, is this something that you can work through? Or are we just going to say that all hope is lost and it's time for something else? If this is something that that person can work through, that you can work through, if this is a similar situation to what you're experiencing, if you're listening to this, then work through it. It'll be worth it in the end, because switching jobs is a pain in the you-know-what. It is really hard to start over somewhere new and to make all of these new relationships and build trust all over again. It's exciting, it's rewarding, it's great, especially if you need something new and maybe you had no option and you were let go or terminated from your past experience. And so this is really exciting that now you have a stream of income. Like, that's awesome, right? But it is a lot of work. So if you can salvage the moment that you're in, and you can work toward the solution, make things better, contribute to the solution. Maybe it's not all falling on you, right? Again, assuming that things are not that bad, following that understanding of what bad means, and that could mean different things to everyone. But if things are not that bad, then it might be worth, putting in the work now so you don't have to switch companies and jobs. And we also know that there is a lot of transition in these companies. So while you're interviewing, a company could be fully staffed, and then by the time you join, they could be 50% turned over. I mean, you really don't know. And on the flip side of that, your existing company could be filled with people that maybe you're not really connected to, and then tomorrow they could all decide to leave. So if you're always basing your decision on someone else, you're always going to have this fluidity to the situation. If you're basing your decision on your own needs and desires and wants, then you're probably bound to have a better more logical approach to your decision, your final decision, I should say. I thought that this episode would be helpful because of the amount of outreach that I've gotten on this topic, but also because I think it's very easy for us, especially if you're in HR, to get caught up in the emotions of things. I have been there. I'm saying this from experience because people are all coming to us with their challenges. They're coming to us with their concerns. And sometimes it's really easy to separate other people's concerns from our own. And it's really important that we do separate them because we want to have a good experience. We are also employees, and we need to make sure that we are contributing to a solution, contributing to a positive work environment and culture. And sometimes that's just a matter of remembering that you're actually happy in your role, maybe, and it's other people's concerns that are affecting you. It's why people who have a negative outlook have such an impact on a work environment. I'm sure we can all think of someone who has made our day feel heavy, has made us feel heavy emotionally because the mood has been brought down. The negativity has brought the mood down, the environment down. And those people that are very negative and complain a lot, I'm just going to be blunt about it, can have a serious impact on our happiness, even if we are happy. And we know that we're happy, it still can affect us. It's why if you are the person that we're talking about right now, you need to leave your current role. If you constantly complain and are always negative and have a negative outlook, then you are impacting people around you. And I know I've spoken about this before on the podcast, but you are part of the problem now, and you might just need to switch jobs. Maybe you're not actually in the right role or in the right company or in the right department. So that self-awareness is really important if that is you. And I'm definitely not trying to call you out, but I hope that it helps us all to reflect on our own experiences, our own journeys, and the ways in which we carry ourselves too at work. But, aside from that, again, that mentality, the mentality we bring to work, positive or negative, has a major influence on the outcome of our experience and the journey through that experience to that outcome. So with that said, I hope that this information was helpful. I know it's a bit of a shorter episode, but I do think that we jam-packed the content in this one. And I really do hope that if you are in this position to make a decision one way or another, that you're taking a step back and really thinking about it clearly, logically, and thoroughly, and with a lot of intention. And also not with the same rose-colored glasses that you potentially had when you entered this particular environment or role. Really be critical of your decision one way or another. And if you have trusted mentors, partners, family members, friends, run it by them. Ask for their feedback. There's no one that is going to think about you more other than yourself than like your family or your closest friends, right? Like they're really going to want to see you succeed. Same with a mentor or, a really trusted colleague. So I encourage you to make the decision that is right for you and not to feel like you have to apologize for it. And I know that there are a lot of concerns too around gaps in time, which we can talk about at another time. But if it's the right decision for you, then it's the right decision for you, regardless of what your resume looks like or what story it tells. So with that, I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for being here again. Don't forget, you know the drill. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're consuming this podcast week after week. Thank you again for listening and coming back each week on Tuesdays. And then, if there's anyone that would benefit from this episode or any of the past episodes, please feel free to share the episode with them. I hope that they enjoy. I hope you enjoy. And I'm wishing you the best week ahead until I see you again next Tuesday.